Her Majesty, Queen Cersei, believed her mate's love was absolute. She was wrong. When his betrayal shattered her and she fled the life she once called home, she found healing in another man's arms. But the Alpha King who broke her would not let her go, because some men only want what they no longer own. Though she didn't know that yet. Right now she was nervous, for hadn't seen her husband and mate Oron, the Alpha King, in 22 days. She had counted each one. They'd never been apart this long, their bond demanding closeness, intimacy. Their upcoming reunion made her feel oddly nervous, like she could already feel something was about to go wrong. Perhaps because of all the rumors she'd heard but refused to be believed. Oron, her mate, the man who loved her despite her flaws, the Alpha who made her his queen despite her lack of wolf, wouldn't stray, wouldn't cheat. His love for her, Cersei was certain, was absolute. And yet, she paused in the doorway, smoothing hands that trembled slightly over the golden silk of her gown. He loves me, she told herself. He chose me. Nothing else matters. Through their bond, she could feel him clearly now, close enough that warmth bloomed in her chest. He was content, happy, so wonderfully, radiantly happy that it made her own smile feel inevitable. I was silly to worry, she thought, pushing open the carved doors. The rumors are nothing. He is simply... The smile died on her lips. Oron sat at their table, resplendent in deep burgundy velvet. But across from him, in the chair that had sat empty for 22 endless days, was a woman whose very presence seemed to steal oxygen from the air. Lady Riva, Oron's first love, more beautiful than memory had painted her. Her scent hit Cersei like a blade between the ribs, because even without the gift of shifting, her shifter blood granted her senses too keen for mercy, and it was clear Oron's musk clung to Riva's skin like a claiming. "Ah, my queen!" Oron's voice carried genuine delight as he rose from his chair. His hands cupped her face with familiar tenderness, and his kiss landed soft and warm against her cheek. "Darling, I was just about to send for you." Perfect timing, as always. His arm slipped around her waist with practiced ease. "You remember Lady Riva, of course?" he asked. How could she forget the woman Oron had loved with the passionate devotion of youth? Riva inclined her head with the perfect deference due to a queen. "Your Majesty," she smiled. "How lovely to see you again." The words were flawlessly proper, but underneath them lay a confidence that made Cersei's chest tighten with unnamed dread. Oron's attention immediately turned to Riva, his whole body orienting toward her like a flower following the sun. He pulled out her chair with the kind of solicitous care usually reserved for the most fragile crystal. "Careful, my dear. You must not overexert yourself in your condition." His large hands hovered protectively near her shoulders. "The child needs proper nourishment, and you've been far too modest about your appetite." Pride radiated from him like heat from a forge, traveling through their bond with an intensity that made Cersei's knees weak. He was glowing with it, transformed by it, more vibrantly alive than she had seen him in months. "Congratulations on your pregnancy, Lady Riva," she said, confused by her mate's reaction. Riva's smile was grace itself. "Thank you, Your Majesty. It is an honor beyond words." "Indeed it is!" Oron settled into his chair, his eyes never leaving Riva's face, and then he announced as if discussing the weather. "The child is mine, of course. Ours truly. Yours and mine, Cersei." Cersei's heart skipped a beat. "I'm sorry, what did you just say?" she asked, hating how weak her voice sounded. Through their bond, she could feel Oron's overwhelming joy at sharing what he clearly believed to be the most wonderful news imaginable. There was no deception here, no guilt or shame to muddy the waters of his happiness, only pride, deep gratitude toward Riva. "I know this must be overwhelming," he continued, his voice gentle. "But Riva has most kindly agreed to do what you cannot, for the good of the realm. She will bear us a strong, healthy heir, a son with the shifting blood necessary to secure our line." His voice took on the warm admiration usually reserved for great acts of heroism as he turned to Riva. "She has sacrificed so much for our happiness," he said. "Despite her noble birth, her own prospects for advantageous marriage, she has agreed to serve as my official mistress. to help us fulfill our sacred duty to the kingdom. Riva's hand moved protectively to the curve of her belly. I want only what is best for the realm, Your Majesty, and for your happiness. You see? Oron's grip on Cersei's hand tightened. She understands what this means, what a gift this is to both of us. You will help raise him, of course. He will be ours in every way that matters. Our son, our heir, the future we always dreamed of but thought impossible. His smile was radiant. Thanks to Riva's generosity, we can finally have the family we have always wanted. Family? Cersei pulled her hand free. May I speak with you? Privately? She snapped. Oron's brows drew together in the first shadow to cross his radiant mood. Anything you wish to say about our heir should be said in front of his mother. The reproof was gentle but firm, delivered with the tone of a king reminding a subject of proper protocol. He gestured toward Riva. She who has made this miracle possible. We both owe her our deepest gratitude, darling. The endearment fell between them like a stone into still water. I know this is sudden, Your Majesty, and perhaps difficult to accept, Riva said. But I hope that in time, we might even be friends. For the child's sake, if nothing else. Cersei gaped because at that very moment, the bond between her and her mate chose to betray every secret Oron thought he was keeping. They flooded Cersei's mind, images he had no idea he was sharing. Riva beneath him in tangled sheets, crying out his name. His hands, the same hands that touched Cersei with careful, dutiful gentleness, mapping Riva's curves with desperate hunger. And through it all, his desire, not the patient, careful affection he showed his wife, but the raw, consuming hunger of a man utterly, helplessly in love. Cersei gasped, the sound torn from her throat like a sob, and stumbled backward until the stone wall caught her shoulders. The room spun, morning light suddenly too bright, the mixed sense of satisfaction and claim too thick in her throat. Cersei? Oron rose from his chair. The words died in her throat. Excuse me. She turned and walked from the room with the measured, precise steps of a woman who still remembered how to be a queen. Each footfall echoed against stone floors that suddenly felt foreign, past portraits of kings and queens who had managed to secure their bloodlines without destroying their wives' hearts. Only when the carved doors closed behind her did she break into a run. Through gardens where flowers bloomed in neat, perfect row toward the wild forest beyond, where she might find enough air to breathe again. Behind her, carried on the bond she could neither break nor escape, came Oron's voice. Darling, where are you going? Come back. We should discuss arrangements for the nursery. Not worried, not guilty, simply puzzled, with the mild confusion of a man who could not fathom why anyone would be upset by such perfectly reasonable, even generous arrangements. This was how, running through trees and sobbing like a chastised child, Queen Cersei realized her mate, the other half of her soul, had never loved her. Not like she loved him. She did not know, as she fled deeper into the wild forest, that she was running towards something as much as away from it. That in the shadows between the trees waited a different kind of love, one that would see her not as a broken queen, but as a woman worth fighting for. And she could not imagine that when she finally found peace in gentle hands and honest eyes, her mate would come hunting for what he had thrown away. Chapter 1. Cersei's legs gave out somewhere between the ancient oak and the stream, miles from the palace walls and deeper into the forest than any queen had business being. Her chest burned with each breath. She couldn't believe it. This couldn't be. The sapphire silk of her gown, Oron's favorite, was torn now, caught on thorns and stained with tree sap. Overhead, a bird called to its mate, the sound clear and sweet, and Cersei wondered if birds were ever unfaithful. A mistress, her husband, her mate, the man she loved, had taken a mistress, made her pregnant, and he wasn't even sorry. The bond hummed between her ribs like a plucked string, carrying his contentment across the miles. He was still happy. "My love, where are you?" His voice drifted through their connection with mild curiosity. "Come back. Don't be dramatic." She dug her nails into the dirt until it caked beneath them. Dramatic? Her mate had invited a third party into their union and she was being dramatic? Something inside her chest began to crack along lines that felt inevitable, as if this breaking had been waiting years for the right moment. All those careful smiles when the court physicians shook their heads. All those gentle reassurances that her worth wasn't measured in heirs. "Circe, you're being childish," she heard Aaron call out in her mind. "Come home. We'll talk about this." The condescension made her teeth ache. How dare he? How dare he take another woman to his bed and then look at her like she was being unreasonable? A branch snapped in the undergrowth. Circe lifted her head and realized the light had changed. Shadows pooled between the trees, and the cheerful bird songs had given way to the rustle of things that preferred darkness. The forest floor smelled of rot and new growth, of things that lived and died without anyone's permission. Another branch snapped, closer. Something large moved through the underbrush with deliberate patience. The wolf emerged from the shadows like a nightmare made flesh, massive and scarred, with yellow eyes that held no recognition of her humanity. A rogue, feral. It was hungry. She could scent that, too, the sharp edge of desperation that made any predator twice as dangerous. How long since it had fed? Circe scrambled backward, silk skirts tangling as her palms scraped stone and root. The wolf followed with measured steps. Circe saw her death in those yellow eyes. Quick, if she was lucky. She'd never manage to shift. And feral or not, the rogue could probably tell. She was miles away from the palace. No one was coming to save her. The beast lunged, and Circe's own beast responded. A power she'd never known rushing through veins that suddenly felt too small. Her bones began to snap like dry kindling. Her spine stretched with grinding that echoed in her teeth. The pain was complete, overwhelming, a symphony of agony that drove every other thought away. This was what she'd been denied her whole life, this violent remaking. Her muscles tore and reformed, her skull reshaped itself, and fur erupted from skin that had known only silk. She was no longer human when her paws hit the forest floor. The wild wolf skidded to a halt, hunger replaced by confusion. She snarled, and the sound from her throat was purely animal, rage given voice in a language older than words. Being betrayed by her mate was enough humiliation for one day. Circe would not die alone in these woods. They circled each other in the fading light. The rogue was larger, heavier, but it was feral, its intelligence dimmed, and she was faster. When it lunged again, she wasn't there. She dodged and weaved around its attacks, but the rogue was cunning. When she darted left to avoid its snapping jaws, it pivoted faster than she expected. Its teeth closed around her right forepaw with crushing force, and she screamed. She screamed, a sound no human throat could make, and the rogue released her, perhaps startled by the sound, or perhaps satisfied that it had drawn blood. Her paw hung useless. When she tried to put weight on it, her legs buckled and she crashed to the forest floor. The rogue began to circle again, taking its time now. She was no longer prey that might escape. She was meat, waiting to be claimed. But the scent of her blood carried more than injury. It carried the musk of an alpha, the complex chemical signature of one marked by the apex predator of this realm. The wild creature's instincts warred, hunger against caution. Caution won. With a final growl of frustration, the wolf melted back into the shadows, leaving her alone with her pain and the humiliation of still needing her mate even now, despite his betrayal, and despite her first shift. Chapter 2. Bronn. Bronn crept through the forest with his wooden bow clutched in sweaty hands, following the deer trail to the stream where Papa had set the rabbit snares. His stomach growled loud enough to scare away any game worth catching, but that couldn't be helped. There hadn't been bread at breakfast, just watery porridge, because Roslyn had eaten the last heel of yesterday's loaf. The traps hung empty again. They'd been empty for 3 days running, and Papa's face was getting that pinched look it wore when the coin purse felt too light and winter seemed too close. Bronn was 8, almost 9, old enough to know that one man and one boy couldn't do the work that one man and one woman used to do before Mama died. That's when he heard the whimpering. It came from near the water, soft and broken, the sound an animal made when it hurt too much to care about staying quiet. When he crept closer, bow half raised, he found something that made his breath catch. A wolf lay collapsed beside the stream, its silver-white fur matted with dirt and dried blood. It was beautiful, even hurt. The most beautiful thing Bron had ever seen that wasn't his mama. "It's okay," Bron whispered, crouching low. "I won't hurt you." The wolf's ears pricked forward at his voice, but it didn't try to run. Maybe it was too weak. Or maybe it trusted him. "Are you one of them?" Bron asked. "Can you understand me?" He knew his king was a shifter who could become a wolf, and others roamed these lands. But no, the beast would have shifted back to speak with him. It was just a wolf. Up close, he could see how thin it was beneath the dirt-caked fur. One front paw was swollen and bloody, and its flanks rose and fell with shallow breathing. "You're hungry, aren't you?" he said, reaching for his lunch bundle. Just bread and hard cheese, but the wolf's eyes tracked his movements. "I know what that's like." He held out bread on his palm, trying not to let his hand shake. The wolf hesitated, then leaned forward and took the food with careful teeth. It ate like it was starving, but gently, never once coming close to biting his fingers. "Don't worry," Bron whispered. "I'll help you. I'll come back tomorrow with more food, okay?" The wolf tilted its head like it understood every word. Bron barely slept that night. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw those intelligent dark eyes and the way the wolf had looked at him like he was the first kind thing it had encountered in a very long time. He was up before dawn, wrapping leftover rabbit meat in a clean cloth. There wasn't much. Papa was careful with their portions, but it was better than nothing. The wolf was exactly where he'd left it, curled beneath the overhanging roots of a willow tree. "You're still here," Bron said, relief flooding his voice. "I brought breakfast." This time the wolf struggled to its feet when it saw him, favoring its injured paw but managing to limp forward. Its tail gave a tentative wag, and Bron felt like he'd been handed the sun. "You're different from other wolves," Bron said, settling on a fallen log while his new friend ate. "Papa says wolves are dangerous, but you're not. You're just hurt and scared." The wolf moved closer after eating instead of slinking away. Bron held very still as it sniffed his outstretched hand. The fur was softer than anything he'd ever touched. "I'm Bron," he whispered, stroking between the wolf's ears. The wolf made a soft sound, almost like it was trying to answer. "My mama died when Roslyn was born," Bron continued. The wolf looked up with those dark, understanding eyes, and Bron could have sworn it was really listening. By the third day, Bron had established a routine. Morning visits before dawn, evening visits after supper, always with food smuggled from their meager stores. The wolf was getting stronger. It could walk without limping now, and it had started following Bron into the forest when he explored. "You miss someone too, don't you?" he whispered, and the wolf pressed its nose against his hand in what felt like agreement. The hardest part was keeping the secret at home. "Where have you been disappearing to every day?" Papa asked at dinner, his sharp eyes missing nothing. "Just exploring," Bron mumbled. "Like you said I could." "The woods aren't safe for a boy alone, especially not lately." Bron's heart jumped. Did Papa know about the wolf? "I'm careful," he said quickly. "I stay near the stream." Roslyn piped up, "Bron has secret." "Do not!" Bron shot back, kicking her gently under the table. Papa's eyes sharpened. "What kind of secret?" "No secret," Bron said, his face burning. "Roslyn's just being silly." But Papa watched him for the rest of the meal, and Bron spent the night wondering how long he could keep lying to the person he loved most in the world. The answer turned out to be one more day. The fourth morning dawned clear and cold, with mist hanging between the trees. Bron crept from the cottage as usual, carrying cold porridge and dried meat. The wolf was waiting at their usual meeting spot, tail wagging when it saw him. "Good morning, boy," Bron said. "I brought—" Bron. The single word, spoken in Papa's quiet, dangerous voice, made him freeze. His father stood 20 feet away with his hunting bow ready, his eyes on the wolf that stood frozen beside Bron's legs. "Step away from the wolf," he told Bron, his voice deadly calm. "Slowly, now." Chapter 3. Cersei heard the voice before she saw the man, deep and commanding, cutting through the morning mist. He emerged from the trees like something out of a ballad, tall and broad-shouldered, with quiet strength that came from years of hard work rather than birthright. His hunting bow was raised, an arrow nocked and aimed directly at her heart. "Step away from the wolf," he said to Bronn. "Slowly, now." He was scared, she understood. Not for himself, but for his son. Every instinct screamed at her to run, but her injured paw wouldn't hold her weight, and Bronn stood between her and the approaching danger like a small, brave shield. "Papa, no!" Bronn started, but his father's voice cracked like a whip. "I said move, Bronn!" Terror radiated from both of them in waves she could smell. Cersei made her decision. She struggled to her feet, despite the fire shooting through her injured paw, and positioned herself between the man and Bronn. If someone was getting shot today, it would be her. "Get away from my son," the man said. "Papa, he's not dangerous." Bronn's voice cracked with tears. "He's my friend." "That's a wild animal," the man snapped. "He's not wild," Bronn insisted. "He listens. He's been listening for days." "Days?" The father's attention snapped to his son. "You've been coming here for days?" "4 days," Bronn says quietly. "I've been feeding him. He was hurt." The anger began to drain from the man's face as he looked at her injured paw. He lowered his bow and approached slowly, still cautious but no longer treating her as a threat. Cersei forced herself to remain still. "Bronn," the man said after a moment, "your wolf is a girl." "What?" "She, not he. This is a female." He crouched near her injured paw. "Infected," he murmured. "Needs cleaning and binding." He looked up at Bronn. "She's been living on what you brought her?" "Yes, Papa." "She should be more aggressive than this. Desperate." His eyes found hers again, and she saw understanding dawning there. He suspected, she thought. Suspected her nature, could see she was too intelligent to be a normal wolf. "Can we keep her?" Bronn asked, his voice bright with hope. "Please, Papa?" "We don't keep wild animals, son." "But she's hurt. She needs us." Cersei watched the conflict play across the father's face, responsibility warring with compassion. She knew which would win. Men always chose duty in the end. But he surprised her. "We'll bring her to the shed," he said. "Not the house." Bronn's whoop of joy made her ears ring. "While she heals," the man added firmly. "Then she goes back to the forest." "Ah, temporary, of course. The story of Cersei's life." The father returned with a crude wooden cart. "Easy now," he murmured as he lifted her carefully. "This is going to hurt." Cersei tensed at being handled by male hands, but his grip was firm without being controlling. He noticed her tension. "I know," he said quietly. "Almost there." He was talking to her like she could understand, which she could, but he didn't know that for certain. Bronn walked beside the cart, chattering about everything she would see at home. "You're going to love it, girl. We have Roslyn. She's my little sister, and Papa makes good stew." Her attention was fixed on the man pulling the cart, on the careful way he navigated around roots and stones. He was kind, she thought, surprised. She hadn't known many kind men. The cottage that came into view was small but well-maintained, with a struggling garden and chicken coop. The man pulled the cart to a small shed separate from the stable. "The horse shed is for Bramble," he explained, opening the door to reveal a dry space that smelled of wood shavings and hay. "You get the tool shed." He cleared a space quickly, laying down fresh blankets before lifting her from the cart. "There, warmer than the forest." Then he reached for a length of rope, and Cersei's world tilted sideways. No, not another cage, another chain, another reminder that she was property to be contained. She growled before she could stop herself, pulling back with teeth bared. The man froze. "Hey," he said softly, showing her the rope. "Easy. I'm sorry, truly. But I won't risk you hurting my children." He approached slowly and looped the rope around her neck. "I know you don't like it," he said, and the apology in his voice was real. Cersei made a sound that was half growl, half scoff. The man stopped and stared at her. "Did you just scoff at me?" She looked away quickly, trying to appear innocent. That's when the door burst open and chaos entered in the form of a 3-year-old girl with wild curls and fearless joy. "Doggy!" she shrieked, launching herself at Cersei. "Rosalind, no!" The father spun toward his daughter, but she was already wrapping her small arms around Cersei's neck. "Big doggy, soft doggy." The child's scent was pure innocence, sunshine and milk and life itself. Something deep in Cersei's chest cracked open, and her wolf instinct surged. "Protect," it said. Through the bond, Oron's voice chose that moment to intrude. "Where are you, Cersei? I need you. Come back to me." The familiar ache made itself known, and Cersei whimpered despite herself. "Shh," the little girl murmured, arms tightening around her. Simple comfort from a tiny human who didn't know she was holding a queen. Cersei felt her heart break and heal simultaneously. Chapter 4. The days that followed settled into a routine that was both blessing and torment. Linus, for that was the man's name, Cersei had heard a visitor say it, allowed supervised visits from the children. Bronn read to her every morning. Rosalind brought flowers and mud tea that Cersei endured with patient grace. Linus himself brought food twice daily and checked her healing paw with hands that grew gentler as her injury mended faster than any normal wolf's should. "You heal quick," he observed one afternoon, unwrapping the bandages he'd fashioned from clean cloth. His eyes were suspicious but not unkind. "The children love you already, Bronn especially." He paused. "He hasn't been this happy since his mother died." Cersei's ears prick forward. These children had no mother. They needed someone to care for them, to love them, to... "Not you," she reminded herself firmly. "You're temporary, and you're just a wolf to them." But the feeling didn't fade. It was at night that the real torment began, when the family went inside and left her alone. That's when Oron's voice was loudest in her mind. "Cersei, where are you? I'm searching everywhere. I've sent guards to every corner of the kingdom. I miss you. Our bed is cold without you. Come back to me, my love." The bond tugged at her with biological imperative. Return to your mate. Accept your place. Stop fighting what you are. But then his voice would shift, taking on the reasonable tone that had become her nightmare. "Think of our child, Cersei. The heir. You're being selfish, worrying poor Riva." "Our child?" Cersei scoffed. "His child. With Riva. The heir that should have been hers, growing in another woman's body." Rage flooded through her at the casual possessiveness in his mental voice, and she found herself pacing the small shed as much as the rope would allow. That's how Linus found her one night, when her distress had apparently been audible from the house. "I heard you," he said quietly. "What's wrong?" He approached cautiously, setting the lantern down and kneeling beside her. "Your paw?" he asked. "Is it hurting?" She forced herself to be still, focusing on him instead of the bond. His hands were gentle as always when he examined her injury, warm and present in a way that made the distant pull of her mate seem less urgent. "Healing well," he murmured. "Better than expected." Instead of leaving, he settled with his back against a post, close enough to offer comfort but not so close as to crowd her. "At least, I hope it's healing well," he said quietly. "My wife was the expert. She taught me to care for wounded animals. She'd sit with them just like this until they calmed." His voice carried the weight of old grief, and Cersei's heart ached for him. "Her name was Agnes. She died 2 years ago, bringing Rosalind into the world." Cersei found herself leaning closer, drawn by his willingness to share his loss. "You understand every word I'm saying, don't you?" he said quietly. It wasn't really a question. "You wouldn't happen to be a shifter, would you?" Her heart stopped. She thought he'd stopped suspecting. "If you were," he said slowly, "now would be a good time to shift back." Cersei winced internally. She wanted to. Gods, how she wanted to transform back to human form, to tell him everything. But no matter how hard she tried, her body refused to obey. The wolf form that had saved her life now held her prisoner. He waited patiently, watching for any sign of change, then sighed when nothing happened. "Guess not," he laughed. "Of course not. You would have shifted by now." Cersei's heart twisted his guilt. She wanted to. She just couldn't. Linus smiled, kind, not condescending, and rose to leave. "Whatever you are," he told her, turning back at the door. "You're safe here." When his footsteps faded and she was alone again with the flickering shadows, Cersei curled into the soft blankets he had provided. Oren's voice was gone. For now. Chapter 5. 3 weeks had passed since Linus had carried her home in his crude wooden cart, and Cersei had learned the rhythm of their lives as surely as she had once known the ceremonial bells that marked the palace hours. Dawn brought Bronn with his stories. Midday meant Roslyn's visits. The little girl chattering to her about flowers and evenings were for the whole family together, voices drifting from the cottage while she lay tethered in her shed. Her paw no longer ached when she put weight on it. The infection had cleared completely, and so she should have left a while ago, planned her next move. Every logical thought told her so. If Oron's soldiers found her here, when they found her, what would happen to Linus and his children? And beside, they thought she was just a wolf. A clever one, perhaps, but still only an animal. They had no idea they shared their home with a queen who had once commanded servants and sat at councils of state. But each morning when she woke to Bronn's eager footsteps, each afternoon when Roslyn pressed wildflowers into her fur, the thought of leaving felt like tearing her own heart out. Today felt like all the others at first. Linus had left before dawn with a pack full of winter furs to sell in the village market, promising to return by dark. Bronn had been given the task of splitting the enormous pile of wood that his father had hauled home the day before, and so Cersei dozed by the open door of her shed, winter sunlight warm on her fur, listening to the steady rhythm of the boy's work. He was strong for 8 years old, but this was work for a grown man, and watching him struggle with burdens too heavy for his shoulders made something fierce and protective twist in her chest. Her pup, she thought of him now, though she tried to catch herself before the dangerous sentiment could take root. Roslyn played nearby, building elaborate cities out of sticks and mud and imagination. "Look, doggy," she called, holding up a particularly impressive mud pie. "For you!" Cersei's tail wagged before she could stop it. The child's joy was infectious, pure in a way that made the palace intrigues seem like games played by cruel children. Here was love without calculation, loyalty without price. Here was a little pup who needed protecting, whether she acknowledged the feeling or not. The sound of small footsteps changed direction, and Cersei's ear twitched with sudden attention. Roslyn was moving away from her play area. "Pretty!" she exclaimed, and Cersei opened one eye to see the little girl toddling toward the woodpile where Linus kept his tools. The large axe sat embedded in a chopping stump, its handle worn smooth by years of use and perfectly positioned for small hands to reach. Sunlight caught the blade's edge, making it gleam like a jewel. "Shiny," Roslyn breathed, stretching up on her toes to wrap tiny fingers around the wooden handle. Cersei was on her feet before conscious thought could intervene, the rope jerking tight against her neck as she reached the end of her tether. "Roslyn!" Bronn shouted across the yard. Time slowed to honey as Cersei watched the axe begin to tip. Roslyn's confused face turned upward, not understanding why the pretty thing was falling toward her. Through the bond that had been mercifully quiet for days, Auron's voice slammed into her mind like a fist. "Don't reveal yourself. Stay hidden," he commanded. The bond pulled at her with biological force, demanding obedience. But Roslyn was her pup, hers to protect, and nothing would stop her. Cersei slammed the bond shut like a door closing. The shift happened as she leaped, bones cracking and reshaping with familiar agony, fur dissolving into pale skin as she hit the ground hard on human knees, naked hands closing around the axe handle to wrench it sideways and away from Roslyn's face. The momentum carried them both down in a tangle of limbs, Cersei's back hitting the packed earth as Roslyn tumbled safely on top of her. "Lady?" she asked, staring down in confusion at the stranger who had appeared where her doggy used to be. Cersei tried to smile, though she suspected it looked more like a grimace. Her throat felt raw, voice unused for weeks, but she managed to rasp, "It's okay, little one. You're safe." "Roslyn!" Bronn's panicked shout preceded his arrival by seconds, the boy skidding to a halt when he saw not his sister in danger, but a naked woman holding her in the middle of their yard. His face went from confusion to protective fury. "Who are you?" he demanded, reaching for Roslyn with shaking hands. "Let her go." Cersei released the child immediately. "Where's my wolf?" Bronn asked. The question broke her heart. This boy had loved her, had fed her and read to her and treated her with the kind of pure affection she had never known. I'm your wolf, Cersei replied. Bronn frowned. Impossible, he said. Your king is a shifter, is he not? Cersei asked gently, sitting up slowly. Bronn's brow furrowed. Yeah, so? She held his gaze steadily. So am I, she explained. She watched understanding dawn across his young face like sunrise. He breathed, unable to finish the sentence. I'm your wolf, Cersei said simply. And I'm also your queen. Chapter 6. An hour had passed since the world had shifted on its axis, and Cersei sat cross-legged on the cottage floor wearing a dress that belonged to a dead woman. Bronn had pulled it from his mother's trunk without hesitation, his young face solemn with the gravity of offering something precious to someone who needed it. So you really are the wolf? He asked for the third time since she had shifted. Yes, Bronn, I really am, Cersei said. And you're really the queen? Yes. Heavy footsteps sounded on the porch outside, and Bronn's head snapped toward the door. Papa's home, he said. Cersei's heart hammered against her ribs as the door swung open and Linus stepped inside, stopping dead in the doorway. The easy smile faded from his face as he took in the impossible scene before him. A strange woman sat on his floor wearing his dead wife's dress, playing with his children. Papa! Bronn launched himself at his father. She saved Rosalind from the axe, and she's magic. Linus's hand moved instinctively to the knife at his belt, his eyes sharp and assessing as they swept the room. Cersei could smell the sudden spike of adrenaline, the protective fury of a father who thought his children might be in danger. Who are you? He asked. She's our wolf, Papa, Bronn insisted. She's a shifter. She changed to save Rosalind. Linus looked down at his daughter, his expression softening slightly at her obvious delight. But when his gaze returned to Cersei, wariness still clouded his features. Bronn, he commanded, take your sister upstairs. Now. But Papa... Now. The tone brooked no argument. Bronn's face fell, but he obediently scooped up Rosalind and headed for the ladder to the loft. When their footsteps had faded overhead, Linus remained standing, his posture rigid with tension. From the beginning, he said, his voice still carrying that edge of distrust. Who are you? Cersei took a breath, trying to ignore the way his scent still carried anger beneath the familiar notes of wood smoke and pine. My name is Cersei of House Nellum. I'm a wolf shifter, though for most of my life I was unable to use my abilities. The first time I managed to shift was nearly a month ago, and I was stuck in that form until... She hesitated, unsure how to explain. Until? Linus pressed. Rosalind was in danger. I suppose the fear helped me change back. She met his gaze directly. If I could have shifted earlier, I would have. I wanted to tell you, but Why did you stay? Linus interrupted. You're not an animal. Surely it wasn't comfortable for you to sleep in a shed. The subtle reproach in his words made her wince. The children, she said. I've grown quite fond of them, and I have nowhere else to go. Something in her admission seemed to surprise him. His rigid posture relaxed slightly. No? He asked, settling cautiously into his chair. Why not? My mate, She bit her lip. He hurt me, so I left. The change in Linus was immediate and pronounced. He hit you? He asked, the words sharp with barely contained fury. No, he would never hurt me physically. We are mated. Linus frowned. Mated. I feel like this implies something, but I'm not sure what. He and I share a soul bond. His emotions are mine, and mine are his. My pain is his pain, so he wouldn't physically harm me. It would hurt him as much as me. Linus's eyes searched hers. But he did hurt you, he said softly. Cersei fell quiet for a long moment. He took a mistress, she said, the words rushing out, to bear him a child. Because since I couldn't shift, he was worried my children wouldn't be able to either. The tears came then, and she pressed her hands to her face, mortified. I'm sorry, For a moment, Linus sat frozen, clearly torn between competing instincts. Then slowly, he rose and moved to fetch water and a blanket. Don't apologize, he said gently. I just don't understand what's so terrible about not being able to shift. Cersei scoffed through her tears. You wouldn't? You're human. For wolves, rank is everything. We answer to authority. and authority comes from having a powerful wolf. Auron is the king. His heir not being able to shift would be... Hold on. Linus raised his hand. Your mate is the king? Cersei paused, realizing her mistake. Oh, yes. The color drained from Linus's face. So that would make you... The queen, yes, Cersei confirmed. For a long moment, he simply stared at her. The queen, he repeated, voice hollow. The queen of the entire kingdom has been sleeping in my tool shed. Seeing his obvious shock, Cersei hurried to reassure him. You didn't know I was the queen, and your shed was... Fine. Linus gave her a look that was equal parts disbelief and dark humor. My point is, Cersei said, I had nowhere else to go. I chose to stay, shed or not. That seemed to settle something in Linus. I'm sorry, he said simply. Queen or not, shifter or not, no one deserves to be betrayed by the person they love. The tears came again, and this time when he didn't move to comfort her, she understood it was respect for her space rather than rejection. I don't know what to do, Cersei admitted. I don't know how to survive on my own. I've been queen my whole adult life. She looked at him with naked vulnerability. And I'm afraid. The bond is quiet now. I managed to close it when I shifted to save Roslin, but I don't know if it will stay closed. What if I see him again and I'm too weak to say no to him? Linus studied her for a moment. He was quiet for a long time, his gaze fixed on the fire. You can stay here, he said finally. Cersei's head snapped up in surprise. Until you figure it out, he added. You can stay here, with us. Before she could protest, he continued, his voice growing stronger, more certain with each word. You saved my daughter's life today, and before that, you made my son happier than he's been since his mother died. You've been kind to my children, and that matters more to me than titles or politics or kings. He leaned back in his chair. I can't promise it's safe. If the king comes looking... I know the risk, Cersei said quickly. I wouldn't blame you if... I'm not finished. His tone was mild but firm. If the king comes, we'll deal with it then. But until then, you're welcome here, for as long as you need. The warmth that spread through her chest was so foreign after months of conditional love that it took her a moment to recognize it as hope. Thank you, she whispered. Well, you are the queen, Linus said with returning humor. I can't exactly refuse you shelter, can I? Oh, of course, I can arrange to pay you... That was a joke, your highness, Linus said, his eyes twinkling. She smiled at that and then... Cersei, she corrected. He looked at her with that gentle smile. Queen or not, he said. You are a guest here. Still, she said, I'll make myself useful. I can help around the house. I know you will, he said, and there was something warm in his voice that made her think of safety and belonging. The children will love to have you stay. It's been hard for them, growing up without a mother. Something passed between them then. Understanding, mutual need, the tentative beginning of partnership. Two broken people who might be able to help each other heal. Chapter 7. A month later, Cersei was helping a little girl stack blocks into towers that defied both gravity and architectural sense. Higher, Mama! Make it tall! Roslin exclaimed. The name still made her heart squeeze with fierce joy and deeper terror. Like this? She added another block with exaggerated care, and they both held their breath as the tower swayed but held. Roslin squealed. At the table by the window, Bronn hunched over his letters with his tongue poking out in concentration. Cersei, how do you spell dragon again? He asked. She moved to sit beside him, spelling slowly, watching as he formed each letter with careful strokes. Will you tell me the dragon story again at bedtime? He asked. If your papa doesn't mind. Papa likes your stories too, Bronn said. I see him listening from the doorway sometimes. Heat crept up Cersei's neck at the thought of Linus standing in the shadows, watching her with his children. Yesterday morning, she had caught him doing exactly that, his dark eyes soft with something that might have been wonder. You're very patient with him, your highness, he'd said, that gentle formality that both warmed and frustrated her. How many times must I ask you to call me Cersei? She'd replied. His smile had been sheepish. At least once more, your highness. The memory made her stomach flutter. There was something in the way he said it. Careful, reverent, like he was protecting some invisible distance between them. The darkness outside was complete now, and worry gnawed at her with increasing urgency. Linus should have been home hours ago. She settled the children for bed with stories and gentle touches, but her attention remained fixed on the empty doorway. When movement finally came from the porch, it wasn't the confident stride she'd been hoping for. Cersei opened the door and found Linus sitting on the steps, his bow forgotten beside him and a bottle clutched in his hands. The sharp scent of alcohol hung in the cold air. "Linus?" He startled and looked up, his eyes unfocused. When he spoke, his voice was rough with drink and something deeper. "Cersei, are you all right?" His words carried the careful precision of a man trying not to slur. "I was going to ask you the same thing." Me? No, I'm fine." He gestured vaguely toward the forest. "Just needed some air." Her eyes dropped to the bottle, and he followed her gaze with a grimace. "Ah, right." He set it down with exaggerated care. "Not my best moment." Without invitation, she settled beside him on the step. The cold bit through her wool dress, but she ignored it. "This isn't like you." "No," he said with a laugh that held no humor. "It's not. It's the anniversary," he said finally, his voice cracking, "of Agnes's death. 3 years today." Cersei felt her heart squeeze with sympathy. "Most days I'm better," Linus continued, the alcohol loosening his tongue. "Good, even." His eyes found hers in the moonlight. "Especially lately. The children are happy. The house is warm again." He paused. "But today I just miss her." "You're freezing," she said, extending her hand. "Come inside." He swayed slightly when he stood, so she stepped closer. His hand found her waist, supposedly for balance, but his fingers lingered there even when he'd found his footing. "Steady," she murmured, aware of the solid heat of him pressed against her side. Inside the cottage, she urged him into the large chair by the fire. "Sit," she said. "You need warmth." She fetched blankets from the chest, and when she returned, found him watching her every movement with an appreciation that was far from subtle. "Here." She handed him the blanket, but instead of taking it, he caught her hand and tugged gently. "Stay here." Before she could think of reasons to refuse, she found herself settling on the thick rug at his feet, his fingers threading through the dark strands of her hair. "Beautiful," he murmured, so quietly she almost missed it. Heat crept up her neck. "You've been very kind to me, Your Highness," he said, his hand slipping from her hair to cup her cheek. "I've asked you to call me Cersei," she said, trying to keep the hurt from her voice. "I know, but I prefer not to." "And why not?" she asked, heart rate picking up. "So I don't forget what you are." Cersei tensed. "What I am." Linus leaned down then, bringing his face level with hers, close enough that she could feel the warmth of his breath against her lips. "A beautiful royal," he murmured, his voice rough with want, "far above my station." Understanding dawned, and with it, a giddy rush of relief. "You think I'm beautiful?" she breathed. She watched his pupils dilate as color flooded her cheeks. "Look at you," he said softly. "You're blushing." His voice held a note of wonder. "That's very charming, Your Highness." The hand on her face drifted down to trace her jawline, then lower to brush across her bottom lip. "Is that because of me?" he asked, smiling. His scent changed completely then, the familiar comfort of wood smoke and earth suddenly sharp with unmistakable hunger. She couldn't suppress the soft sound that escaped her throat, half whimper, half moan. "Cersei," Linus breathed, and it was the first time he had used her name without prompting. When he leaned down from the chair, slowly, his hands framing her face, she rose on her knees to meet him. Their lips came together in a kiss that started soft and questioning, but within heartbeats turned desperate and hungry. She found herself being pulled up, guided between his spread thighs until she was pressed against the front of the chair, her body fitting against his as if she belonged there. "God, Cersei," he groaned against her lips. His lips left hers to trail along her jaw, and she gasped, her head falling back to give him better access. "You're so soft," he murmured against her throat. Her hands found their way under his shirt, palms flat against the warm skin of his chest. He made a sound low in his throat, half growl, half plea, and suddenly his mouth was on hers again, more demanding this time. This was what she had been craving without even knowing it, this feeling of being wanted. She was drowning in sensation when he pulled back to look at her, his eyes glassy and unfocused. "You're beautiful," he slurred, the words running together as he reached for her again. Reality crashed back, the empty bottle on the porch, the grief that had driven him to drink. "Wait," she breathed against his lips. "Lanus, perhaps we should—" "Should what?" he murmured, trying to pull her closer. "He's drunk. He's grieving. He's not himself." "We can't," she said more firmly. "I can't. Not when—" His face crumpled for a brief moment, then he released her from between his knees. "You're right," he said quietly. "Of course you're right. What was I thinking? This was a terrible idea," he said, pushing himself up from the chair. "You've been nothing but kind," he said, backing toward the hallway. "To me, to my children, and I took advantage. That was wrong of me." "No, that's not what I meant," she attempted. "Forgive me, Your Highness." The formal address was back, a wall built of guilt and propriety. I need to sleep this off." He turned and disappeared down the hall toward his room. She heard his door close with a soft click, leaving her alone by the dying fire with swollen lips and a heart that hammered against her ribs like a trapped bird. Chapter 8. Cersei had slept badly, if sleep was what one called the restless hours spent staring at the ceiling while her body remembered the taste of Linus's mouth and the weight of his hands in her hair. He had wanted her. She had smelled it, had felt it in the desperate way his mouth had moved against hers. She rose before the children stirred, her hands trembling slightly as she built up the fire and set water to boil for tea. Perhaps he would kiss her again, sober and deliberate, and she could finally breathe freely for the first time in weeks. The door to his chamber opened with a soft creak, and Linus emerged into the main room. Cersei's breath caught at the sight of him. "Good morning, Your Highness," he said, his voice carefully neutral as he pulled on his boots. The words hit her like cold water. "Your Highness, not Cersei." "Good morning," she managed, watching his face for any sign, embarrassment, regret, even acknowledgement of what they had shared. But his expression was a mask of polite indifference. He stood and reached for his hunting pack. "Thank you for breakfast," he said, though she had not yet prepared anything beyond the water that sat steaming in its pot. "I should check the traps before the children wake," he added, already moving toward the door. "The weather looks to turn, and I want to see what the night brought." Then he was gone, the door closing behind him with soft finality. She stared at the closed door until her vision blurred, then forced herself to move. The children would wake soon and expect their morning meal. But as she went through the motions, slicing bread, stirring porridge, her mind churned. Had he forgotten? Drink could steal memories. Perhaps he remembered nothing of the way he had traced her lips with his thumb, the wonder in his voice when he called her beautiful. If he remembered nothing, then there was no awkwardness to navigate. But instead of relief, that felt like losing something precious before she had even known she possessed it. And worse was the alternative, that he remembered everything and simply did not care? When he finally returned, it was well into the afternoon, his pack heavy with rabbits. He nodded to her politely, thanked her for minding the children, but would not meet her eyes. That evening, they sat down to dinner as they had every night since she had come to stay with them. But the easy warmth was gone, replaced by careful politeness. "Sleep well, Your Highness," he said, the title ablaze between them. The pattern repeated itself the next day, and the day after that. It was Bronn who finally gave voice to what they all felt. "Are you angry at each other?" he asked one evening. "You and Papa?" "We're not angry, sweetheart." But even as she spoke the words, she knew they were a lie. There was anger building inside her, hot and bitter. Not at what had happened between them, but at how he was choosing to pretend it never occurred. She was a queen, damn him. She had commanded armies before she'd known him, and now here she sat, reduced to a timid child waiting for scraps of attention. The breaking point came the following day. Linus had returned from town with supplies. "Your Highness, where should I store the extra grain?" he asked without looking up. The casual dismissal ignited something that had been smoldering inside her for days. "The same place it always goes," she snapped. He paused. "Are you feeling unwell?" The polite concern was the final straw. She set down her knife with more force than necessary. "Oh, I'm fine," she said, the words sharp enough to cut. They stood in silence, the air thick with unspoken tension. "Your Highness," he began, but she cut him off with a sharp shake of her head. "Don't call me that." She turned toward the door, but his voice stopped her. "Where are you going?" "Out," she said without turning around. "Cersei, wait!" But she was already grabbing her cloak, already pushing through the door into the cold evening air. The forest welcomed her with its familiar whispers. Here, she could admit the truth she had been hiding even from herself. She was in love with Linus, and he did not feel the same. When she found the spare axe that Linus had left embedded in a stump, Cersei wrenched it free with more force than necessary. The first swing sent vibrations up her arms, the blade biting deep into the pale wood with a satisfying thunk. All her frustration poured into that single stroke. Thunk! Her stupidity. How many times would she do this to herself? Thunk! Falling for another man who didn't want her. She split the log with vicious precision, each blow landing exactly where she intended. Her hands were beginning to blister, but she welcomed the sting. The gnawing emptiness in her chest was proving far more persistent. The insecurity rose in her like poison, that familiar voice that whispered she was not enough. Suddenly, there was a familiar voice in her head. "Cersei." She froze with the axe raised above her head. No, not now." "I feel your pain, my love," Oron said in her mind. The bond that had been mercifully silent for weeks suddenly blazed to life. "Go away!" she snarled aloud, bringing the axe down. "You're suffering," he murmured. "Come home. Let me comfort you." "Whatever happened there," Oren continued, "whatever that man did to hurt you, you don't belong there, darling. You belong with me." She chopped faster, harder, trying to drown out his voice, but the bond was open now and... "Cersei!" The shout cut through her mindless rhythm like a blade. She spun toward the sound, axe still raised, and found Linus striding through the underbrush. "What in the seven hells do you think you're doing?" he demanded. "You're bleeding." She didn't lower the axe. "I'm fine," she said, her voice hoarse from unshed tears. "Go back to the cottage." Like hell. In one fluid motion, he stepped forward and caught the axe mid-swing, his larger hands closing over hers on the handle. "You'll hurt yourself," he said softly. "I'm a shifter." The words came out bitter, dismissive. "I'll heal fast." She tried to twist away from him, but his grip was iron. "Let me go." "What's wrong?" Linus demanded, searching her face. "Cersei, what's wrong?" She stopped fighting then, going very still in his grip as all the rage and hurt rose up to choke her. "You kissed me," she accused. "You kissed me, Linus." His face went white, but he didn't release her hands. "You called me beautiful," she continued, the words tumbling out like blood from a wound. "You wanted me. I could smell it. And then you—" Her voice cracked. "You pretended it never happened. Do you even remember?" The question emerged raw and desperate. Linus stared at her for a long moment. "I remember," he said quietly. The simple admission hit her harder than any elaborate explanation would have. "Then you regret it," she said, throat tight. "Of course I do," Linus said. She went very still in his grip. She had expected it, had prepared herself for this exact response, but hearing it... "How could I not regret it?" Linus continued, his voice rough with anguish. "You're a queen, Cersei." He stepped closer, close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from his body. "I'm not presumptuous enough," he said, his gaze burning into hers, "to fancy myself worthy of a queen." Another step brought them almost chest to chest. "Especially," he added, voice dropping to something barely above a whisper, "especially if that queen is you." She gaped at him, unable to process what she was hearing. "I'm not a queen anymore," she said. "I'm just a woman you kissed and—" She couldn't finish. The words were too big, too dangerous, too close to admissions she wasn't ready to make. Linus's face fell as he watched her cry. His hands released hers only to slide up her arms to her shoulders, finally coming to rest against her face with a gentleness that made her heart stutter. "Forgive me," he whispered, "for kissing you when I had no right, and for leaving you." He leaned closer until their foreheads touched. "And," he added, breath hot against her lips, "for pretending it never happened when it's all I've been thinking about ever since. When it's about all I can do not to do it again." She couldn't suppress the sound that escaped her throat, half moan, half whimper. "Do it again," she breathed, not asking but commanding with all the authority of the queen she had once been. "Cersei!" His voice was strained, barely holding on to the last threads of restraint. But before either of them could close the final distance between want and action, the sharp crack of a breaking branch echoed through the forest. They both froze, still tangled together but suddenly alert to the sound of approaching footsteps, many footsteps, moving with the disciplined rhythm of trained soldiers. Through the trees came a flash of gold, armor catching the afternoon light like a beacon. Then another and another, until a full dozen guards in royal livery emerged from the forest. And at their head, tall and regal and utterly, impossibly present, walked King Oron. Chapter 9. His golden hair caught the light like a crown, his handsome features arranged in an expression of relief and joy as his eyes found Cersei. The bond between them surged with such force that she gasped aloud. "There you are, my love," Oron said, as he walked toward her with confident strides. "I've found you at last." The shock of seeing him here, in this place that had become her sanctuary, left Cersei speechless. Before she could react, Oron stepped close and pulled her into his arms. The mate bond sang with satisfaction at their proximity. "What came over you, my love?" he murmured against her hair. "How could you leave me? Do you have any idea how worried I was?" Through the bond, she felt genuine concern and worry, relief so profound it made her knees weak. "I searched everywhere," he continued. "I sent guards to every corner of the kingdom." She pulled away then, stepping back until she was out of his reach. "What are you doing here, Oren?" she asked. He looked at her as if she'd asked why water was wet. "Looking for you, obviously." His gaze flicked dismissively to their surroundings. "I wouldn't come all the way here for fun." Then his attention focused on Linus with polite disinterest. "And who is this?" he added. "This is Linus," Cersei said. "He and his family have kindly allowed me to stay with them." Linus gave a curt nod. "Your Majesty," he greeted. "Yes," Oron said with a dismissive wave. "How kind." He turned back to Cersei as if Linus had already ceased to exist. "Now we can finally go home." A sound escaped Linus then, something between a scoff and a laugh, bitter enough to make both royals look at him sharply. "Yes, peasant?" Oron asked. "Anything you'd like to say?" Linus's expression didn't change, but his voice carried careful chill. "It's not my place to say anything, Your Highness." "No?" Oron agreed with satisfaction. "It isn't. However," Linus continued, his tone still perfectly neutral, "if I were the queen, I would say it's bold of you to assume she wants to go anywhere with you." The temperature in the clearing seemed to drop 10 degrees. Oren went very still, his handsome features sharpening. "Leave us!" he commanded, and the words carried all the weight of royal authority and alpha dominance. But Linus remained exactly where he was, meeting the king's gaze without flinching. "I don't think so," he said calmly. Before the situation could escalate further, Cersei stepped between them. "Linus!" Her voice carried the authority she had learned in years of managing court politics. "Leave us. This is a private matter." She saw the hurt flicker across his face, quickly suppressed. "Please," she said more gently. For a long moment he studied her face, then he nodded once, sharp and decisive. "I'll be at home," he said, the words clearly meant for Oren as much as for her. "If you need anything." When his footsteps had faded into the forest, Oron's mask of royal composure slipped slightly. "I can't believe you just left," he said, genuine hurt in his voice. "Without a word, without explanation. You closed our bond so completely I couldn't even tell if you were alive." The accusation stung because it carried truth. Through the bond, she could feel the echo of his anguish, days and nights of worry. "I hurt you?" The words came out sharper than she intended. "You don't think you hurt me?" Oron looked genuinely shocked. How did I... What are you talking about? Your mistress, Cersei said, the words tasting like ash. Your child. Flaunting them both in front of me and expecting me to be grateful for the privilege. Understanding dawned in his golden eyes, followed by relief. Right. Well, that's in the past now, Cersei. He waved his hand as if dismissing a minor inconvenience. All of that is behind us. The casual dismissal made her jaw clench. That's in the past? Yes, of course. His smile was radiant. I felt it, you see, through the bond when it reopened, your transformation. You managed to shift, didn't you, darling? Despite everything, pride flickered in her chest. Yes, Oron's joy was immediate and overwhelming. Before she could react, he had stepped close again and kissed her, a quick press of lips that tasted of triumph. Oh, darling, how relieved I am. This means we can conceive properly now. There's a chance our children won't be defective. Cersei went very still in his arms. Defective? Like you are. Well, were. Another casual wave. Then, seeing her expression, his face softened into indulgent affection. Oh, don't look at me like that, my love. You know your lack of wolf doesn't change how I feel about you. Especially now that I can shift, Cersei said slowly. Yes, quite. Everything will be perfect now. A cold knot was forming in Cersei's stomach. I'm not defective, Oren. I know that, he said quickly. You've proven it now. No. The word came out harder than she intended. I didn't need to prove anything. I was never defective to begin with. Oron chuckled, the sound fond and indulgent. Well, my love, one would say a shifter who cannot shift is... And what of the humans in your kingdom? Cersei interrupted. Are they defective? Oron paused, clearly confused. Not defective, just... human. But through the bond, she felt what that word meant to him. Lesser. Oh, I see what this is, Oron sighed. It's about that peasant of yours, isn't it? Before she could respond, he continued with the air of a man solving a simple puzzle. Yes, I felt your desire for him through the bond. Pretty crass of you not to shield that from me better. The casual criticism hit like a slap. Like how you shielded your many nights of passion with Lady Riva. I was doing my duty, Oron snapped, his composure cracking. And enjoying it a whole lot, Cersei shot back. The accuracy of the blow registered on his face, and he recognized he had crossed a line. His expression softened, and he reached for her hands with practiced ease. You're right, he said quietly. I hurt you, and I'm sorry for that. Truly sorry. Consider Riva gone. I'll dismiss her from court immediately. You get rid of your human pet, and we'll never speak of this again. We don't need them, Cersei. We're the king and queen. Our children will be perfect. I know it. He extended his hand to her, his golden eyes warm with genuine love. I love you, Cersei. Let me prove it to you. Let me fix this. For a moment, she almost reached for him. The bond hummed with his sincerity, his desperate need to make things right. This was the man she had married, offering her everything she had once thought she wanted. But the words echoed in her mind. Your human pet, spoken with the same casual dismissal he used when telling her to be grateful to Riva. Like she had to accept whatever he said because she was less. Will you come home with me? Oren asked. Cersei stared at his outstretched hand and saw everything it represented. Safety, certainly. Love, of a sort. A return to the life she had known, the role she had been trained to fill. All she had to do was take it, and she could be queen again. The silence stretched between them, heavy with possibility. Chapter 10. The cottage had never felt smaller than it did in that moment, with two small bodies pressed against Cersei's sides and the weight of her decision crushing down on all three of them. Don't go, Mama, Rosalind sobbed, the words muffled against Cersei's shoulder. Please don't go. Each repetition felt like a knife twisting in Cersei's chest. She wrapped her arms tighter around both children, breathing in their familiar scents. It's not forever, she whispered. I promise, little love. We'll see each other again. Bronn pulled back to look at her. When? He asked. Cersei's throat closed around the honest answer that she didn't know. "As soon as possible," she said, and meant it with every fiber of her being. The sound of horses outside broke the moment, hoofbeats on packed earth that announced the end of whatever time she had left. Through the window, she could see Oron waiting with royal patience, and beside him stood another horse, saddled and ready. The children walked with her to the door. Linus waited by the horses, his face carefully neutral, but his scent carrying undercurrents of unease that made her wolf whine with distress. She should have explained, should have taken him aside and told him exactly why she'd decided to leave. But when she had announced her decision to return with Oron, Linus had simply nodded. No protests, no questions, no indication that her leaving mattered to him. He hadn't asked her to stay, and she was done chasing after men who didn't want her enough to fight for her. "Your Highness," Linus said with a brief nod. "Linus." She nodded back. He stepped forward and extended his hand to help her mount. "Have a safe trip," he said, not quite meeting her eyes. Before she could respond, Rosalind's voice cut through the morning air. "Don't go, Mama!" The little girl tried to run toward the horse, but Bronn caught her around the waist. "Thank you, Linus," Cersei managed. "Thank you for the hospitality you've shown me." "Yes, peasant," Oron said, pulling at his reins. "Thank you for your services to your queen." Anger flickered in Linus's eyes. "Oh, it was my pleasure, Your Highness," he snapped. Cersei's pulse quickened despite herself. "Was it?" she challenged. Linus met her gaze directly for the first time since she had announced her departure, and Cersei's heart stumbled in her chest. Did he care? Could he possibly feel even a fraction of what was tearing her apart? "Absolutely," he breathed, and it sounded like a confession. His chest rose and fell with careful, measured breaths, but she caught the slight tremor in his hands, the way his jaw worked as if he were fighting words that wanted to escape. "Well," Oron muttered, "one does have to go home at some point. I'm still her mate, after all. Not that a human would understand what that means." Linus turned to face the king directly. "Perhaps not," he conceded. "In fact, a human would have to wonder, with how little he understands of mating bonds, how one could just decide to go behind his mate's back to conceive a child with another, and then flaunt it as an accomplishment in his mate's face." The silence that followed was deafening. "Well," Oron began, but Cersei cut him off with a sharp gesture. "This really isn't any of your business," she snapped at Linus, though the words came out more wounded than angry. Linus's expression hardened. "No, I suppose not," he said. "You're the queen, after all. You're free to do as you please." They stared at each other across a gulf that suddenly felt wider than kingdoms, and Cersei felt something breaking inside her chest at the raw longing in his eyes. She was about to turn away when, "One just has to wonder, Your Highness," Linus said, "how someone as extraordinary, loving, and brave as you could choose to return to a man who never understood the privilege he's had to be loved by you." Cersei gaped at him, her breath caught somewhere between her lungs and her throat. "Oh, so it's a privilege, is it?" she squeaked. "Yes," Linus said simply. Cersei felt tears prick at her eyes. "You really think so?" she asked, her voice small and wondering. Before Linus could answer, Oron's exasperated voice cut through the moment like a blade. "Oh, for crying out loud!" he snapped. "She's not coming back to me out of love, peasant. She's coming back to finalize our divorce and, most importantly, the severance of our bond before the Great Council." Linus blinked, his gaze snapping from Oron to Cersei and back again. "Sorry, what?" He looked utterly bewildered. "Yes," Cersei confirmed, her heart racing. "I'm the queen. I can't just run off without legally ending our union. Also, a mating bond between royals must be severed before competent witnesses." She watched the confusion clear from Linus's face, replaced by something that might have been hope. "So, even though I already rejected our bond," she added, "it's my royal duty to present my case and choices to the court before I can be free to—" She trailed off, suddenly shy under the intensity of Linus's gaze. "Go back and live with your peasant?" Oron sighed, sounding thoroughly fed up with the entire situation. Cersei ignored him, waiting for Linus to say something. "You're coming back?" he asked finally, his voice low and careful. "Well, of course I'm coming back," Cersei said, trying to sound casual even as her heart hammered against her ribs. I wouldn't just abandon the children. I plan to visit them. Relief spread across Linus's carefully composed features, so profound it was almost painful to witness. The children would love to have you, he swore, entirely too fervently. Visit as often as you want, for as long as you want. Stay forever, Braun interjected from behind them. Cersei smiled, despite the tears that threatened to spill over. Well, I wouldn't want to be an impediment, she said. Before she could finish the thought, Linus was there, reaching up to help her down from her horse. His hands closed around her waist with a sureness that spoke of barely contained emotion, and suddenly she was sliding down into his arms. This close, she could smell him, and underneath his believed scent, want and relief and a desperate kind of joy that mirrored her own. I thought you regretted what happened between us, she murmured, meeting his gaze. Linus looked genuinely shocked at that. Only because I thought I'd overstepped, that you didn't want... He begun. Shut up, Papa, you'll ruin it! Braun's voice cut across whatever he had been about to say. Yes, kiss her, Papa, kiss her, Rosalind added. Both Cersei and Linus laughed, the sound breaking some of the tension that had stretched between them. But when the laughter faded, they were still standing there in each other's arms, close enough to see the way his gaze dropped to her lips with unmistakable hunger. Slowly, giving her every chance to pull away, he cupped her face in his work-roughened hands. Cersei, he whispered. And then they were kissing, soft and sweet and full of all the words they hadn't been able to say. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, she could hear Bronn cheering in the background and Rosalind clapping with delight. I'll come back, she promised, her forehead pressed against Linus's. I'll come back to you. I'll wait, he said simply. We'll all be here, waiting for you to come home. Home. The word settled in her chest like a blessing. She kissed him again, quick and fierce, trying to memorize the taste of him to carry with her on her journey. At the end of it all, she would be free to come back to this place, to her family who loved her for exactly who she was. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this story. If you'd like to explore more of my work and follow what I'm creating, you can find me on Patreon. I share free content there, including blog posts, sneak peeks at upcoming stories, and character cards that offer more insight into my characters and their worlds. For members who choose to support me, I also share ad-free listening, bonus chapters, and exclusive full stories you won't find anywhere else. You'll find the link in the description if you'd like to take a look. Thank you, as always, for your support. Much love, Lily.